This is the regularly scheduled meeting for ANC 34G. I'm Randy Speck. I'm the chair of the commission. I represent the single-member district that is ANC 34G03. And that's basically the area bounded by Nevada on one side, Nebraska, and Broad Branch. And we're very happy to have all of you here tonight. I know we've got an interesting topic tonight that a lot of people are going to be interested in. So we'll introduce the other commissioners. We'll start this time with Dan on that end, since Becky's in the back.
Hi, good evening. Welcome, everybody. My name is Dan Bradfield. I represent 3G06, which is on the western portion of the district, on the other side of Connecticut, to Chevy Chase Park. A little better? Yes. Better? Okay. Good evening. My name is Dan Bradfield. I represent 3G06, which is on the western portion of the district, from Connecticut Avenue to Chevy Chase Park down to Military.
Hi everybody, I'm Jerry Mallett. I'm the commissioner for 3G05. I go down Connecticut Avenue to the west side of Broad Branch and from west Chevy Chase Circle down to Mountain Military.
I'm Chris Frombaluti, ANC 3G07, bounded by Military, Reno, and Nebraska, and Nevada.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Commissioner Shanda Tuck-Garfield, and I represent ANC 34G02, which is on the easternmost part of the district, closest to Oregon Avenue and Rock Creek Park. Thank you guys for coming out, and ladies, for coming out this evening.
Good evening. My name is Abraham Clayman, and I represent ANC 34G01, which includes Hawthorne and part of Barnaby Woods.
Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca Maida, 34G04. I have Lafayette Park and Lafayette Elementary School. Basically go from Utah to Broad Branch, Tennyson, and Nebraska. Thank you.
Okay, we've got all of our commissioners here, so we can conduct official business today. Just for everyone's information, we do videotape our meetings. We don't show the video of the audience, but it's of the commissioners and the speakers who come to the podium. Just for your information, and our video is posted on YouTube for everyone to see after the meeting's over. The first item for the agenda is to adopt the agenda. It's been posted on our website and on various listservs and other places. Are there any modifications or changes anyone wants to make to the agenda? All right, all those in favor of adopting the agenda? 7-0. Okay. First, I have the commissioner announcements. I have a few announcements. There will be a meeting about the Lafayette Rec Center and specifically about stormwater design on May 14th. That's Tuesday. It'll be here at the Community Center at 6:30. And this is what they're calling a stormwater design charrette. They're interested in getting as much information from the community as possible that they can, so that they can design the stormwater drainage system off of the high point of Lafayette Park down onto the ball field and ultimately into the street. So if you're interested in that, that's going to be a meeting on May 14th at 6:30 at the Community Center. The Department of Parks and Recreation, that's part of the Department of Parks and Recreation, but they're also holding a meeting to update residents on the status of renovations at Hurst Park, which includes the construction of the first outdoor public pool in Ward 3. There's been a lot of discussion about this project. There are some people who are very much in favor of it and some people who are opposed to it. DPR is taking residents' input and will address questions and issues at this meeting. And I neglected to put the date in here for that meeting. I will put that in our minutes and make sure that the date's included there as well if someone's interested. There will be the district's Office of Chief Technology Officer will hold an all-hands-on-tech event on Saturday, May 4th from 10:30 to 3 o'clock at the Benning Neighborhood Library. Then there will be another one on Saturday, May 11th from 10:30 to 3 at the Petey Green Community Center. And these are designed really to help people to repair their technology, their devices, or to get other kinds of help that they need with technology. And it says in partnership with the DC Public Library and the United Planning Organization, they will provide assistance with laptop repairs and issues, smartphones, tablets, free smartphone workshop, and you can register online at the Office of the Chief Technology Officer's website. I'll put that all in our minutes as well. As I announced at our last meeting, this Thursday there's going to be a meeting at the library about the library facilities master plan for the district. And this is particularly important because they're considering possible changes with our library that will complement or add to the renovations that we're doing here at the community center. And so they're asking what programs and services you want from your library, are there potential partnerships that the community would value, and what impact should the community center have on plans for the library. There's more information at the library's facilities master plan, which is available on the DC Library's website. And finally, the Carnegie Institute for Science, the Department of Terrestrial Magnetism, which is in our neighborhood over in the Broad Branch, on a Broad Branch campus, is presenting its second spring neighborhood lecture this Thursday, April 25th at 6:30, and the lecture will be on the gravity of volcanoes using gravity data to probe magma reservoirs. And as I mentioned several times before, these lectures are really fantastic, and we ought to take advantage of them. We've got a tremendous resource right here in our community. Okay, Becky, you have announcements?
Just one. As many folks know, Beach Drive is under construction and will soon be finished this fall. As part of that construction, Wise Road will close beginning this Saturday at 6 a.m. to finish the last portion of Beach Drive. And as this ANC requested, and as Commissioner Todd's office and many folks in the community requested, while Wise Road is closed, it will be resurfaced during that time, and it will reopen again in the fall. So Wise Road will close this Saturday to be resurfaced and will open again this fall.
So I have one announcement. This concerns 5301, 5303 Connecticut Avenue, which is at the corner of Jocelyn Street, where there's a vacant lot and a half-torn down building. I was talking about at the last meeting having an ANC meeting about this property because it's been vacant so long. And in my investigations and Anthony Castillo's, who's the rep for Mary Chase investigation, we found out that a building permit has been issued for those two lots, and a 4.5-story apartment building is going to be built on them at the time. So I'm going to postpone this meeting at the next ANC. I want to look at the drawings, which I was able to get a hold of, and talk to the neighbors about what, if anything, we want to do about it.
I have one announcement. There's a new art organization in the community, Chevy Chase Art, and they have their first scheduled art walk on Sunday, May 5th from 12 to 5 p.m. where 10 studios will be open representing 20 of our local artists. 7 of those studios are in our ANC. So that's Sunday, May 5th from 12 to 5. Their website is chevychaseart.org, and there's a map of the locations, and there's flyers on the table outside, and some other information as well. Thank you.
All right, we'll go to community announcements now. And as we usually do, is anyone here from the mayor's office? Yes, Jessica.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jessica Wertheim. I'm the mayor's Ward 3 liaison. So if you ever have any community questions or concerns, please feel free to contact me. I have several business cards. If you need my contact information, or you can come talk to me. In addition, as you may know, Mayor Bowser released her proposed fiscal year 2020 budget. So I have some one-pagers on some of the investments that she's proposed for Wards 3 and 4, and also some summaries and budget highlights. I won't take up too much of your time going through them now, but glad to send them to you as well. In addition, just wanted to quickly highlight that this coming Sunday, Mayor Bowser will be at the Chevy Chase, sorry, lost my note. No, it's the CCPC Nursery School, and it's the 60th anniversary playground party, and Mayor Bowser will be attending and delivering remarks. So if you're interested, she will be there, and that's from 4 to 4:30 p.m. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone from Councilmember Che's office here? I can see Anthony. Oh, there he is. No announcements though. Okay, all right. Anyone from Councilmember Todd's office? Okay. We do have another announcement from Gregor Entenwald. Go ahead and pronounce your name for me, Greg.
Good evening. My name is Greg Entwistle, and I'm a recruiting assistant for the 2020 census. I'm also a resident of Chevy Chase Apartments right there on the circle. So for those watching online as well, we've got online applications this time around, 2020census.gov/jobs. Our goal is to hire people from every neighborhood in America. I'm responsible for all of Washington, D.C., and I'm especially looking to get my recruitment numbers up right here in my neighborhood. So whichever ANC you're from, whichever neighborhood in America you're from, Maryland, D.C., we need people from everywhere. I am only on the clock for this announcement, not for the whole meeting. So if anyone is just interested or knows anyone who's looking for a job right now, I can just walk around and pass flyers out. So if anybody just wants to raise your hand, I can do that right now. Thank you for your time.
Jobs? Are they paying jobs or volunteer jobs?
Great question. The pay is $25 an hour in Washington, D.C., Montgomery County, and Northern Virginia. It's one of the highest rates anywhere in the country.
Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome.
Thank you for staying.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a presentation on Dockless scooters. Jerry, you want to introduce this?
So with all the talk about alternative modes of transportation that we read in the paper, or we see on the news, scooters and bikes and electric, of each one of those as well. One of the scooter companies that's here in DC is Bird Scooters, and we have Monica Laufer with us to make a presentation about that.
Hey everyone. Okay. So I'm Monica Laufer. I am the Government Partnerships Manager for Bird. We were actually the first e-scooter company to come here to DC, and we've been operating in the district for about a year. So thanks to Jerry and Randy and the entire commission for having me here today. Generally at these sorts of meetings,
I like to just open up the floor to questions, since I know that a lot of people see these scooters as sort of mythical things on their sidewalk, and have a lot of questions about them. So I am going to do that, but before I do that, I just really quickly wanted to run through a presentation. If you didn't get a copy of this, they're back there on the back table. Just to quickly go through what Bird is and what Dockless scooters are for anybody who's not familiar. So Bird is a last mile electric vehicle sharing company dedicated to bridging affordable, environmentally friendly transportation solutions to communities across the world. So we are in over 100 cities worldwide. We were started in Los Angeles, California in September 2017, and we've been in DC since March 2018. And really our goal is to shorten, to take the short trips that people use Uber or Lyft, or even their own personal cars, and move people to electric vehicles, which are much more environmentally friendly and actually more cost effective for users. So 40% of car trips in the US are under 3 miles. So anybody, for example, here, maybe hopping in an Uber to get to the metro would be a perfect example of the kind of car trip that we're trying to replace. The other part of the presentation that I really want to highlight, because I feel like it will be really important to this group, is on the back you will see a slide called Community Mode. So because we were the first company in this space, we really take our position as kind of a leader and an industry trendsetter seriously, and we have adopted something which we call Community Mode, and that allows anybody in the community to report a misparked scooter or a broken scooter for our team to immediately come and check it out and pick it up and move it, whatever it requires. So that means that you don't have to be a Bird rider, you simply just have to report it through the app, and our team will know and come pick up the scooter. And with that, I thought I'd open it up to questions.
Let's start with the commissioners. If commissioners have questions?
Hi, thank you for doing this presentation. I'm Commissioner Shannon Garfield, so I appreciate transportation alternatives here in the district. You mentioned you just started in March 2018 here, and I'm just wondering what your long-term plans are. I know you have, a lot of information for the community. Just tell us about that.
Yeah, so we've been here for 2018, or since 2018, so just a little over a year. As some of you probably know, DC has some pretty tight regulations when it comes to micromobility, starting with the Dockless bikes in September 2017, and then moving to the Dockless scooters starting in March. So we've been pretty limited in size and scope of our program here. I think if you asked our CEO, they would say we want to replace every car trip in the district. I don't think that is going to happen anytime soon, but that's certainly a goal that we would strive for. When it comes to more reasonable goals, we definitely want to see the size and scope of our fleet here in DC expand, particularly when it comes to removing the short car trips from the road. I actually heard on a DDOT podcast today that when Capital Bike Share was introduced, they immediately saw a 4% drop in traffic. And I'm hoping that we can continue to capitalize on those kinds of behavior changes that people are making to shift towards environmentally friendly transportation.
I have a few questions. I just happened to have been in Austin, Texas this last weekend. And Austin is awash with scooters. They're everywhere. And I did have a few questions about that. I know you have governors on the scooters, right, to limit the speed that they can go. Mm-hmm. Can you change the maximum speed permitted depending on where the scooter is located?
Yes, to a degree. So we do have geofencing technology that allows us to govern speed to an extent, but it's still very much a work in progress for our industry. We couldn't, for example, differentiate between the sidewalk and the road. We really, it's usually about a 20 to 50 foot radius. So we can do our best to geofence specific areas, but it doesn't get super specific. For example, right now we have geofenced Nats Park. And so you can't, when you get to a certain part, your scooter will eventually cease to operate. So we can do little things like that around very specific landmarks. But when it comes to governing speed, we just don't have the technology to do it with the accuracy that we'd like to see.
But you could have a zone that, in that zone, the speed limit would be lower than elsewhere.
Yeah, we can do that, and generally we like to have those zones set by the government. So to give you an example, in California on the Venice boardwalk, we've geofenced all of our scooters to go much slower, but another operator there hasn't. So what we're really looking for from governments going forwards when it comes to geofencing speed is to set some sort of industry standard, so that, because if we're doing that, it's only a small portion of the scooter riders in the area.
When everybody play by the same rules, essentially, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, we have not seen everybody playing by the same rules, yeah.
When I was in Austin, almost no one, I don't think I saw a single person with a helmet on. And I know we've had some pretty serious accidents with scooters here in the district. But I did know, just with a little bit of research, I saw that Bird does offer helmets for just the cost of shipping. And how many people are actually taking advantage of that? Is that really something that's that you can promote even more strongly?
Yeah, so we've given around 65,000 helmets out around the country. For the first 6 months or so we were in the district, we were holding a number of helmet giveaways. I think it's a much more complicated issue than just access to a helmet, unfortunately. So right now, the number of scooters that each operator is allowed to have in the district is 600. And what that means is you're not necessarily going to walk out your door and see a scooter and hop on and be able to plan your transportation around scooters. And so what people do is they just don't bring a helmet because they don't know exactly how they're going to get from point A to point B. So in addition to making sure that people have helmets, we also promote a little bit more reliability when it comes to the service, so that people feel compelled to bring their helmet with them.
Yeah, I really like this idea of a community mode where people can report it. Does your, I guess maybe your geosensing for the scooter isn't sufficiently refined to be able to tell whether a scooter is parked in an illegal place or not. Is that right?
That depends. So if you park it on the mall, for example, we are able to detect that pretty quickly. And those immediately go dead and go to our bird watchers, is what we call them, to go pick them up and move them to a place where they technically belong. If it's, you know, on private property, let's say in someone's driveway, that's a lot harder for us to know, which is why we wanted to develop more tools for the community.
And if it's parked on a sidewalk as opposed to a bike rack that's near the sidewalk, you can't tell that either.
Right, right.
Have you had any problems? I read an article recently, I think it's in California, where they have a group that goes around and collects the scooters and puts them in storage and holds them for ransom to the company because they were illegally parked. Has that been happening here?
That has not happened here.
Question on, in terms of pickup and service, how often are they picked up and serviced?
Yeah, so anytime that our scooter goes below, I believe it's 40%, we basically alert our team that a scooter is going to be going on bounty. When it hits 20%, it becomes a bounty scooter, so it stops being able for people to use. And then we pick it up and charge it ourselves, whether at our service center or through our gig economy chargers. We have recently moved towards leaving our scooters out overnight that have a high charge, just because we've noticed that if we were to remove every scooter from the street overnight, then we're putting out a lot more emissions in terms of vehicles going around to collect them, and it's ultimately better for everybody to just leave it there, and then it goes offline starting at midnight. Any other questions?
Okay. So when you say offline,
Yeah.
there's an inability.
Could you speak in the microphone, Chandra?
Oh, yes. Okay, does that mean that people cannot rent the scooters after midnight?
That's correct. So basically what it does is it locks. So the front wheel locks. Anytime you move a scooter that is locked, it'll start beeping pretty loud and obnoxiously. So you're probably not going to want to move it after that. But yeah, so you cannot move them after midnight.
And then what's the earliest that someone can rent a scooter?
5 a.m.
I have one more. I have one more question. This was about the waiver.
Yeah.
If you're going to ride a scooter, you have to sign a waiver, essentially. It's a pretty broad waiver, and as I read it, it absolves Bird of any responsibility for its own negligence. If you get a scooter, for instance, that was negligently maintained, and you have an accident as a result of that, as I read this, Bird is not responsible for that. Only if there's gross negligence or deliberate misconduct. Have you considered modifying that? Because that really is a pretty broad waiver that I think is probably not justified.
I'm not a part of our legal team, unfortunately, so I couldn't give you an educated comment on that.
If you could,
I'm happy to put you in touch with that.
Because I am concerned about that because there is certainly a possibility of accidents occurring on scooters. And if it's an accident occurs because of the user's negligence, that's one thing. But if it's a result of Bird's negligence, then that could be a different problem.
Absolutely, yeah, that's definitely something I can talk to our legal team about, but I do want to add that we recently opened a service center here in DC. So we are maintaining all of our vehicles ourselves, and they run through our service center every week to make sure that they are in great shape. They go through a very rigorous test. And then we also deploy what we call bird watchers who go around the community and look for any broken vehicles that need to be removed from the fleet. And we look into every single report in community mode as well. So if someone reports that maybe your handlebars were a little shaky or a little wobbly, we immediately deploy a bird watcher to go check that out.
Okay, any other questions for Jerry? Dan?
Can you tell me, one, are you, and in what way are you capable of preventing accidents that occur? And then two, do you know of any study, two, internally, have you done, do you continually watch dockless bikes versus dockless scooters? And then three, are there any large-scale national studies that have been done between the two?
Yes, yes, and yes. So part one, we do our best to track accidents to the extent that a rider reports it. That's usually our best indication. Police reports help as well. But other than that, we don't have a whole lot of data around when accidents happen on our scooters. What we do have is a pretty extensive study done by Paul Seeley-White, who is a former transportation leader in New York City, and he looked pretty in-depth into this issue, especially comparing e-bikes to e-scooters. And I'm happy to send you the report. Absolutely. And then a number of outside sources are looking into this as well. Austin, as Randy mentioned, is awash in scooters, and so they were one of the first cities to really look into this, and they have put out a report as well. Yeah, I'm happy to set up.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it, and good luck on the scooters. Thanks, Monica. Okay, the next and major issue on our agenda, we've cleared most of the agenda tonight to talk about the issues related to traffic around Lafayette Elementary School. And I guess we're going to divide this into two segments. Becky's going to talk first about the traffic around the school, proposals that DDOT has made for changes there, and then Jerry's going to talk about or lead the discussion on the proposals related to the E6 bus. Okay, Becky?
Hello, everyone. Okay, so quite a few months ago, there was a walkthrough at the school with the school, DDOT, WMATA, MPD, DPW, Councilmember Codd's office, and the ANC to discuss issues around the school when it comes to traffic and drop-off and things like that. So in March, there was a meeting at the school that DDOT hosted and WMATA was there when they gave us their proposed changes. So I'm going to only go into the changes that DDOT's proposing, and like they said, Jerry will do the other ones. So the proposals that have already been done or are in the works of being done that really had no objections were on the stop signs. When you come up to the corner, when you see a stop sign, you'll see a stop sign on the right. On the opposite side of the intersection, there's a stop sign on the left, but there's no stop sign facing the intersection. So they're going to put the backstop on the back of the sign. So you see the stop sign from both sides. So if you look left across the intersection, you'll also see a stop sign. That was no objections. The raised crosswalk on Broad Branch Road in Northampton is not to compliance. So they're going to raise it an additional 4 inches. So that crosswalk, the main crosswalk, is going to be raised even higher. So in essence, it's a crosswalk / speed hump or whatever, but the kids will be higher than they are now. They're going to add a no through traffic at the alleyway on Northampton, right across from the gymnasium, to prevent cars from cutting on a line and going down the alley, because that's not fair to the residents and it causes traffic concerns when cars are cutting through and turning around and coming for the drop-off from there. There's also going to be enhanced parking enforcement from DPW and traffic violation enforcement from MPD. That has already started. I'm sure some people know that's already started. There was a proposal to move 2 of the 388 parking spots from Broad Branch Road to Northampton, and my understanding is that's off the table. They're all going to be on the Broad Branch side of the school. Where they are now, they're just going to be better marked. The things that are in question are, one of the proposals is to add speed humps on Northampton Avenue on the block of the school, so that's the 3300 block.
Street.
I'm sorry?
Northampton Street.
I'm sorry, Northampton Street, the 3300 block. Another proposal is taking away all the parking on the 3300 block of Northampton on the school side of the street. There's another one that to make Northampton one-way. DDOT said that they will not make a block one-way, so they would go from more of a major intersection to the street. So I don't know, I'm guessing that'd be Nebraska to at least Broad Branch, maybe even Nevada. I don't know. Sarah, are you here?
Yeah, we're not doing that.
I'm sorry?
We're not making any streets one way or.
That's off the table?
Yeah, that's off the table.
So that's off the table. So the speed bumps are still on the table and the parking?
The speed humps are on the table as long as the community that's what the community wants and the ANC approves it.
Right, but so that and the parking, those are the 2 issues that are.
The parking, I believe it was because we were going to do the handicap reservation there, but if we're just leaving it as it is, I don't think we're removing any parking.
No, you were talking about taking away parking on the residents on the school side of the street.
Right, because to make traffic, to accommodate traffic, but if everything's staying as it is, we probably, I don't believe we're removing any parking, but.
Could you go to the mic, I'm sorry. And introduce yourself, please. So why don't we just say what's on the table and what's off the table at this point?
Yes. Sarah Molina.
There's a button on the front.
Sorry, this is fancy. Sarah Molina from DDOT. I am the community engagement person. So I'm your primary contact. I'm like the moker, but at DDOT. I used to be a moker. Okay. So you are absolutely correct. We're gonna make the stop signs more visible. And we are going to do the race walk. And we're looking into the signs for the alley as well. what we're not doing is changing any of the current, what we had proposed on the school, like zone drop-off for handicap or for the buses, just because I believe that the school and the parents said that it was good as it is. So we kept that, we heard your suggestions, so we're keeping as it is. We're just going to make it more visible so that, you know, it can go smoother and then people know where to park and where not to park.
Just for clarification, is that on Broad Branch you're talking about?
Yes.
Just want to make sure.
And so the proposal on the last page, on the 4th page on top, it shows what we had proposed, right? Which is the yellow line was for the buses to park at, and then the blue line was the reserved for parents to drop off, and then the green was just the pick up and drop off for other parents. And so what we were proposing was in Northampton, the traffic on the residential side, to remove it so that there's traffic flow. But remember, all this is off the table, so none of this is happening. So we're keeping it as it is. I will double check, and I can, if you have questions, concerns, I will communicate with the proper person in the ANC, and if you have any questions, concerns, you can email me, Syra, S-A-Y-R-A, .Molina, M-O-L-I-N-A, 2, the number 2, at dc.gov, and I'll double check, but I don't think we're removing any parking, I'm pretty sure. And then the speed hump, we're willing to work with the community and the ANC as long as we get an approval from, resolution from the ANC to get those speed bumps on the ground. We'll work on those. And we're not converting, we're not touching any streets. We're not converting nothing into one-way.
So my understanding is the only thing that's on the table are the speed humps, the parking is safe, and the one-way street thing is off the table also.
Yep. Well, what we're doing is, it's minimal but impactful. We're not, we're just making the, we're making our, what's already there more visible for pedestrians, drivers, and all.
So the only thing open for discussion is the speed humps as we, yes, okay. So would anyone like to comment on the speed humps?
If I can get a clarification, are the speed humps, there could be new speed humps on Northampton?
So it would be up to the commission and the community to tell us where you guys want it.
Okay, you're not recommending any specific place for any speed humps, other than raising the one that's at the intersection of
The crosswalk, yeah.
Crosswalk.
So what we're asking, we heard that the community wanted a speed bump, so what we're saying is, we'll work with the community and the ANC. As long as everyone's on board, then we'll make
My understanding is the whole community didn't want the speed humps. The residents didn't want the speed humps on that street. So we'll discuss that now.
Could I ask you a question? Will the speed humps be made to the specifications which have been in the manual for years?
Yeah.
The height and the raising up and lowering?
Can you just answer a couple questions here? I think there probably will be others as well. But will the regulations for the speed humps apply to these speed humps as well? Including all the height of the speed humps, all of that would still follow the normal regulations, right?
Yes, we have to follow, we have the same procedure, the same regulations for everything. Right. So we have to, it's a standard, we don't.
It would, but are you saying ordinarily you've got to get, I forgot the proportions, but you've got to get most of the people on the block to agree to it, and then it goes before the ANC, all of that process, do we have to do that too? It has to be a petition, and...
No, it doesn't have to be a petition. All we're asking for is a resolution.
Okay.
The community wants it, you ask for it from your ANC, the ANC passes a resolution asking DDOT to do X, Y, and Z, and then, you know, we'll provide an acknowledgement, and then we'll let you know when we can move on it.
I have a question. How many, is it just one crosswalk that's being raised, or is it the whole intersection, all 4 crosswalks?
I believe it's just one crosswalk.
Which one is that?
And it's the one that's it's already apparently a crosswalk, and I wasn't on the walk, but it's already a crosswalk, a raised crosswalk. We're just making, I guess,
Goes across
repairs.
Northampton from Broad Branch on the school side of this intersection.
Okay, how many people want to speak about this or have questions about it? Okay, we'll just take one, I guess. We'll just take them from the audience. Yes.
I'm Carrie Brokart.
Yes, Carrie.
I'm the principal at Lafayette. Excuse me.
Yes. Well, I think you got to provide it here. No. It's just a few here. Go ahead, Carrie. Yes, if you can stand up there. No, maybe or maybe not. We'll see.
Okay. I'm Carrie Brokart. I'm the principal at Lafayette, in case some of you don't know me. So I would just like to sort of say from a school perspective, the ask for the issues that we see, we do not think will be resolved or mitigated by speed humps on Northampton. We do not see speed as an issue. It's more about congestion, erratic driving, not following what we ask you to do in the drop-off line, etc. So school's position now, I don't know if other residents have other concerns that would relate to you as the neighbors on the street, but school is in no way advocating for speed humps on Northampton and do not think that they will actually address, like that's not, we don't see speeding, right? Like there's just too many people there. So that's school's official take. The one crosswalk that is raised, apparently they just didn't put in enough height to it, so that's what DDOT has said, they will bump it up to the regulation. School has also asked DDOT on a couple of occasions to appropriately mark and signage the ADA parking spots because they are not currently signed to specification right now. There's too much space in between the signs, and the signs face out as opposed to back, like where the drivers are. So sometimes drivers can't see the sign because they face this way. So school has asked DDOT a couple of times for that, and appreciates that they're not moving the spots for the safety of our families.
I just have one thing to say.
Thank you, Carrie.
If everything's off the table, the school doesn't want the speed humps, I know the neighbors on Northampton don't want the speed humps, can we just say it's over and done with, there'll be no, other than the signage and the stuff that's already in the works, there'll be no other proposed changes? Anybody have a problem with that? Nothing done to Northampton Street, no one way, no parking, removing parking, and no speed humps.
It's more of a clarification, and maybe I missed this, but my question was, what, I just wanted clarification as to... Can you identify yourself? Sorry, Lauren Roach Garland, I live on Chevy Chase Parkway. And my kids go to Lafayette, and I use the drop-off lane, and I'm concerned as a parent that we are not addressing one of the major issues that is going on in Lafayette. And I guess I'm trying to understand, I came here thinking that we were even going to have a discussion about the one-way, even just for a small period of time in the morning, so that it would create a situation where it wasn't that crazy congestion and it wasn't impacting the rest of the day. I'm wondering why that's totally off the table.
DDOT, I wasn't aware till today that was off the table. DDOT, Sarah?
So I was informed that after having the walkthrough or further analysis, we can't do the just temporary one-way. It doesn't work, and it would create more confusion and possible more problems. So if we are talking about doing a conversion of one-way, it would be permanent, one, and two, it would affect other streets. So it would have to be further community as a whole discussion than just one street.
I have a follow-up question for that. What do you mean by it can't be done?
So again, like, we don't wanna change, we don't wanna make changes to a street just for a couple of hours. If we're looking into making changes, we can do it. However, if we're looking to making changes, it has to be a permanent change. It can't just be just for a few hours.
So it can be done, but you choose not to do it.
So if the community wants it, we can look further into it. However, it's not gonna just be one block. It's gonna be affecting other blocks, and it has to be like just more than one block.
I just
So we
want a
can work.
clarification on why, when you said it can't be done.
And I'm sorry, not that we cannot do it. We can look into it. However, we're not going to do just for a temporary, like for a couple of hours, just because it can create more confusion. And after analysis, they determined that it just wouldn't be the resolution overall for resolving the overall problem in that area.
I'm not sure we've got a real clear answer here. I just want to make sure we're absolutely clear. What you're saying is that you can make the change permanently for multiple blocks and for all times.
Yeah, permanently,
But
not for short term.
for making it short term, you can't do that. And I understand the reason you're saying is, and I can understand this, that it'd be very hard to enforce that.
Yes.
Because people are just not going to know
Yes.
when they can go and when they can't go one way.
Even with signage.
Even
Yes.
with signage.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Can I say something?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm Suzanne Neal. I live next door to the parking lot of the school on Northampton Street. After I heard about this, supposed disaster on Northampton Street, I sat on my porch for a week and filmed with my iPhone the traffic coming in the morning up from 33rd on Northampton to the drop-off. What I observed was impatient parents, people who wait until 5 minutes before the doors are closing. Doors are closing, doors are closing. And there's a rush. But there's never more than about 12 cars. That's not a major emergency. I've noticed that the school has now started letting the children get dropped off earlier than they used to. It's now about 20 minutes after 8. That really helps a lot. Maybe maybe people have adjusted their systems, but it's not a horrible emergency. Before anything gets swept up into being done, somebody ought to get out there and count the cars and see how long it takes. It is not a terrible emergency. That's from my perspective on my porch at 8:15 in the morning until 9 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you, Susan.
My children went to Lafayette too.
Thank you, Susan.
Hi, I'm Lauren Zella, and I live in Barnaby Woods, and I'm a Lafayette parent. So I'm curious, as the assessment was done, was the idea was it to try to make the way to school for the children and parents more efficient and safer, or was it to try to release congestion for the surrounding community? I'm curious if, that framing question we got. I think that, having sat at the corner of 33rd or 32nd in Northampton for 8, 9, 10 minutes in a morning, many days, not for being late, but because a single truck is coming up from Broad Branch, blocking everyone's way, the cars and the children, everyone's moving out of the way. It's really an unsustainable situation to have every single day. And that one truck or that one car who doesn't understand that this 20 minutes is kind of sacred for getting 800 children to school really disrupts everything. So I think more needs to be done.
I kind of want to move this around. Oh, move this along.
Are we getting a response from DDOT on that?
Oh, okay.
Let them know what they were thinking.
I respond for, sorry?
The truck coming down the opposite way.
Well, and what the focus of your study was. Is your study kids and parent safety, or is it making sure there's not a lot of congestion in the neighborhood?
So I don't want to speak out of term, and I was not a part of the conversation about the study and who requested it. I don't know if it came from the ANC or the community. I can look into it and I'll follow up with whomever I need to follow up with. I believe that this was a request from
Yeah, it's a school.
Yes, school can answer that for you. It was born out of, we have long had traffic issues. Many of you see me in the morning, sometimes with the whistle, oftentimes with cones, sometimes with a little craze in the eyes. We had a horrific bus accident at the very beginning of the school year. And as we continue to grow, the number of people, just sheer quantity descending on school at the same time in the morning, the density has increased. And so we had already put in a second crossing guard or a safety technician, and that person got moved down to Northampton, and then eventually a couple of parents really petitioned in with, not petitioned in, but really advocated with Councilmember Todd, who then engaged all of the different agencies to do the walk, to try to figure out what their solutions were, if there were some little bit impactful solutions to try to make all of us safer, right? Because every morning is scary sometimes. And so that is how DDOT came to do the traffic study. You know, I've been involved some I would love to be involved more. But that's how it started. So.
Do you have a question?
I'm just wondering, one of the parents from the school mentioned that there's delivery issues with Broad Branch Market. Is that an issue that has been looked into, or has the school coordinated with the market to talk about truck delivery and the times and how that coincides with the drop-off time for parents? Because
Tracy and I talk about that pretty frequently. I would say like once a year, once every 6 months. She has a standing agreement with most of her drivers, right? Because she is so sort of boutique and small in that way. But there are times when she has asked them all to come after 10 a.m. Every now and again, somebody does not, right? And so, but she and I talk on the regular to try to minimize that. Every now and again, we use.
Right.
It's the garbage truck. It's the scariest truck. Yeah, but that's another story.
Because I'm a parent, I live on the other end of the neighborhood, but I use the market early in the morning too, and I have noticed the trucks, and that's where I wondered with the coordination with the trucks. I know there is actually the bus route that comes through there as well, and all that is converging at the same time as the drop-off is. Even though my children are older now and don't go there, but I do know the issues around it.
Yeah, she has asked them to come after 10 a.m.
Thank you.
One thing we might focus on, though, is that garbage truck, if we could get an agreement from DPW, that they would also not come before 10. It may be more difficult to do.
I just want to say this. I pulled crash data from 2014 to the end of 2018 because this year's not available yet. On Northampton Street from 2014 through 2016, on 33rd in Northampton and Broad Branch in Northampton, there were exactly 3 accidents, and two of them were not during the morning drop-off, and it was during the construction period, and they involved the truck, and it was property damage only. So there wasn't any pedestrian injuries at that time. The problem that seems to be the spot that seems to be most problematic, because even Broad Branch and Oliver, so from 2016 to 2018, there were no accidents on Northampton Street. From 2014 to 2016, a car was sideswiped on Oliver and Broad Branch, and that included a truck also. There were no accidents reported from 2016 to 2018. The problem that has more accidents, it seems to be Broad Branch and McKinley. Those are the ones that involved pedestrians, and most of the time it involved buses. And it wasn't during the morning drop-off, except for two accidents. The rest were not. One was a passenger car and a bus. One was property damage only, and then one was the pedestrian one that you keep referring to. So I don't really see a traffic issue here. So for the sake of argument, I think we can all move on. Since the one-way street's off the table, the taking away the parking spots is off the table, the only thing that's still open for discussion is speed humps. The residents on Northampton Street don't want the speed humps, so I'm not willing to support any resolution for the speed humps. And I think we can move on.
Well, and Carrie also mentioned that it wouldn't do any good for them either.
And the school, right, the school doesn't want the speed humps. So, any objections to that? Okay, then we can move on to the E6 bus, I guess.
One moment. Laura. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Laura Finizzi. I live on 33rd by the ball field. And sorry. I'm Laura Finizzi. I live on 33rd by the ball field. Just two thoughts that I had. I actually see less traffic on 33rd by my house now that the crosswalk guard has moved down to Northampton. And I also seem to see fewer students both in the morning and the afternoon for just a lineup to go in and dismissal. And when I was on the school improvement team for construction several years ago, it was quite a hub and spoke pattern, kids converging from a lot of different directions. And I'm wondering if that has changed and maybe is making the drop-off morning more intense than it used to be. And the other question that I had, back in 2015, I floated the idea of a school pool, which is through Washington Commuter Connections, which is run through the Metropolitan Council of Governments, where parents can put their information in a database and they can indicate like what time of day or what days of the week they might want to carpool, and it might help people get carpools with people in different grades that they might not otherwise know live near them, and that might take some heat off of the streets without any cost. It's a free program through the Metropolitan Council of Governments. It's called School Pool. I didn't hear any response back from the school in 2015, but given this issue now, it might be time to take another look at it. Thanks.
Okay. If there aren't any other comments, we'll move to the discussion about the proposal for the E6 bus. And this is also related in the sense that the E6 bus currently goes right by the school on Broad Branch. And Jerry, you want to lead that?
Sure. So as all of these other discussions were taking place, there was also a discussion about changing the route of the E6 bus. From what I understand, the E6 is one of the least utilized, if not the least utilized bus route in all of DC. And right now it goes across McKinley to Broad Branch, hangs a left on Broad Branch to Western, where it makes a right turn. And the proposal is to change that and have it go on McKinley to Nevada, to make a left turn on Nevada, up to Western, and again to make a right turn. So I've gotten personally about 25 emails from constituents that live in and around Nevada. All of them opposed to this, but I'm going to turn this over right now to two people that have been instrumental in working within the community and creating a petition of concerned residents, and that's Paul Boyle and John Ayre. So who's coming up? I'm coming up. Okay.
Ken, after we've had this discussion now, can people raise their hand if they're interested in talking about this issue? Okay, we've got a lot of people to talk and a limited amount of time, so we're going to ask that each person limit their comments to 3 minutes. And Alan Beach, Commissioner Emeritus, is going to be the timekeeper, and he will say when the 3 minutes are up.
Can I go a little longer since I'm introducing the petition?
We'll give you,
Okay.
as they do in the council, when there's testimony, if you're representing the group, you get 5 minutes.
Okay, great, and I'll speed it. So
One question before we get ready. Are we going in order of
Yes.
how people
in
signed
order-
up?
In order of how people signed up. And I just, if you want to line up here, Jeannie McCarthy, Casey Dutton, John Ayers. Pardon? Oh, of course. Maybe we should do that first. Why don't we do it? You want to do that first, Jerry? Or you want to? Okay, that's fine.
I think we go for, I think people know the proposal, and maybe if we express our concerns, and if you want to address some of those concerns.
No, not necessarily. I would like for them to present their part as well.
Can I just,
Okay.
can I just ask a quick question? Similar to the last question we dealt with, is there anybody in favor of this?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Are you in favor? You want to be in favor?
So 3 or 4.
Okay, good.
So you have two, you're
Okay, let's not have any side talk here. Hey! Okay, we're not gonna have a lot of side talk. Not gonna permit that. Okay. Yeah, Jerry, I think, we'll certainly let Paul talk first, then we'll hear from WMATA, and then we'll hear from everyone else. Okay? Because Paul was gonna sort of set the stage accordingly.
Well, thank you. I'm Paul Boyle, that's my wife Joy. Raise your hand. At 5708 Nevada Avenue. And thank you for this hearing, and thank you for what you do for our neighborhoods. I'm just talking about the E6 moving from Broad Branch to Nevada. And when I first looked at the proposal, it made sense to me. Let's move it away from Lafayette, 1 block, wider street. Easy solution, right? Well, not every, easy solution is maybe not the best solution. And I talked to my neighbors, and we found out that there are other issues that are in play around the same time that are interrelated with one another. And we have a petition that we have filed with the commission that is signed by 117 residents on and around Nevada, asking the commission to direct DDOT and WMATA to look at all these issues and approach it in a holistic manner. So the petition's on the table if you're interested. The first issue, I think, is nobody wants to pick up a kid from underneath the bus. On Broad Branch, on Nevada, Chevy Parkway. I want to know, I think the petition wants to know, is Nevada Avenue safer than Broad Branch? We heard that there's no speeding on Broad Branch. It's a narrower street. Living on Nevada Avenue, we know that it is a wide street. It's curvy. It has blind spots. People speed. And if you sit there during the day, you see 100 kids that cross Nevada on their way to Lafayette, or cross the other side heading west to Blessed Sacrament, or going to the after-school program at CCPC. Okay? In addition, Nevada Avenue is used as a drop-off and pick-up spot for Blessed Sacrament. And every day you see bikers on that street commuting to work and coming home. So let's add buses to the mix. Washingtonians, commuters, they want to get into work, they're speeding, they see a bus in front of them, they pull around that bus as fast as they can. Are we creating more safety hazards? I know at the Lafayette meeting I heard that there was discussion, we'll move the bus route and we'll put in traffic control measures. We are on a street that's our Ward 3 mixing bowl, and those measures don't work. So 10 years ago, there was a Lafayette student crossing Nevada on Northampton in the walkway. He got hit by a car, broken leg. The residents on our street signed a petition for a stop sign. Mary Che helped us get that stop sign immediately. There was a sign put up in front of my house that says, 100 yards ahead, there's a stop sign. Well, what has that done? In the last 2 years, there's been a parent that's been hit by a car that rolled through the crosswalk and the stop sign, and a nanny. I just want to I'll go quickly on some of the other issues. We ask that this analysis look at other routes where buses currently travel, Western Avenue, Utah. We point out that this commission on March 25th had a presentation from DDOT in which they talked about micro-transit, which is on-demand bus service, kind of an Uber bus, smaller shuttle-type services, right? And DDOT said the prime candidate is the E6. Low density in the neighborhood, low ridership. I get 5 minutes, right? We all see the 40-foot buses that go by with 2 people in them.
30 seconds on 5 minutes.
Okay. Anyhow, we know that this whole proposal is 12, 18 months down the road, but could you envision a time in which E6 goes down Western and you fill the gaps through microtransit and through the neighborhood? We're talking 8 blocks on Broad Branch. Other issues, we got a study going on in Connecticut Avenue to change the commuter lanes. How's that going to impact Nevada? Proposed bike lane for Connecticut Avenue or Nevada Ave. So you put in a barrier for a bike lane. I'll finish that. So I think with all those issues, there's a convergence of issues in which DDOT, WMATA, smart people could come back with a proposed solution that makes sense and is good public policy. Thanks for your time.
Let's hear from WMATA now.
Hi, my name's Ann Chisholm. I'm the Government Relations Officer at WMATA assigned to the district. I'm not going to have many comments, but I'm going to have Christine Marsh present the proposal to you. I'd also like to recognize some other experts that I brought with me from WMATA. That's Al Hines, who's in bus planning, and also Bobby Gilchrist, who's from street operations, and also Robin Ross from our safety office.
Thanks everyone for having us. As Ann said, I'm Christine Marsh from Metro's Office of Bus Planning. Just a little bit of background information about the E6. There has been bus service operating on Broad Branch in this segment between McKinley and Western Avenue since at least the 1940s. The earliest map I have in my office is from 1942, so it has been there for quite some time. But following the community walkthrough that we had last fall that was mentioned, we did, after hearing from the school and others in the community, wanted to take a look at making a change to the route to address some concerns. So as we move forward and deciding what to do next, the feedback that we received from the ANC, from the community at large that we've already received in other forms through email and calls, we're going to take that all into account. It's really critical for us deciding our next course of choices. So just real quickly, the route itself only operates on weekdays. There's no weekend service. It operates from 5:45 to 9:45 p.m. Every 24 minutes in the rush hour and only every 48 minutes in the middle of the day and evenings. So the proposal, as was mentioned, I put 2 options together in your handout, both showing the route using Nevada Avenue between McKinley Street and Western Avenue. But where we decide to place the bus stops that's just an idea at this point. The whole proposal is an idea, but I laid out two options. We could place 2 pairs of bus stops on Nevada Avenue, or we could place just 1 pair of bus stops, depending again on the feedback we receive from the community. So that would be another thing we'd like to hear some opinions on. And I do on these maps, I show some ridership data, and this shows the number of people who currently, on an average weekday, total number of boardings and alightings at each of these stops. So you'll see that it adds up to 17% of the total route activity. And whenever we do a proposal that affects more than 10% of the riders on the line, that's considered a major service change, which means that we need to have approval from Metro's board of directors. So we would need to go through a formal public outreach process, which hasn't even begun yet, and have a public hearing as a part of a board meeting, and have them give us approval before we were to do any sort of implementation. So yeah, the next page is option B, which would be just an idea for one pair of bus stops on Nevada Avenue as compared to two. So that, and that's the sort of thing that if we were to move forward with that, we would need to do some more extensive work going out with the DDOT in the field to look at what places are best to be made ADA compliant for a bus stop as far as the slope and visibility. So we'd want to be really careful for where we place those bus stops. So that is an option for you to consider. So to get into some of the reasons why Nevada Avenue itself does offer some advantages over Broad Branch Road. The next page is, one is roadway width. From curb to curb it is approximately 9 feet wider than Broad Branch Road. And you can sort of see in the pictures that it is wider. It also does have a double yellow line, which is something that we typically are looking for when we're planning bus service. The double yellow line is typically indicative of a larger street that is more easily can accommodate bus travel on it. Typically we're looking for places that have 10 or 11 foot lanes, which is usually in the same places that also have a double yellow line. Another safety consideration is the angle of the turn from McKinley Street onto the other street. So neither one is exactly perpendicular to McKinley Street, but the turn heading, making a northbound left from McKinley Street onto northbound Nevada is a little bit less sharp than the turn from McKinley Street onto Broad Branch. So that is one consideration. Obviously, it would be ideal if they were exactly, perpendicular, but it is a little bit less sharp to turn onto Nevada Avenue. So I laid out a couple of the costs and the benefits of this proposal on the next page for your consideration. So some of the costs would be for people who are using the E6. It may be if they had to walk from Nevada Avenue a little bit farther, for them to walk to the school or the rec center or the market or the farmer's market. Depending on where some of the riders live, it may be a little bit longer for them to walk from their homes to the bus stop. And that would be the sort of thing we'd hear more about from riders if we were to do a formal outreach process, which would involve surveying riders. We'd hear more about where they live, how much it would impact their commute to have to walk further, or if they have disabilities or elderly, if that's a concern for them. So that's something we would hear about more as far as the walking distance in that process. The other concern is for those who would be walking a little bit further, the slope of the cross streets between Nevada Avenue and Broad Branch Roads, they would have to walk up and down that hill a little bit further, which is one thing we've heard from some concern we've heard. There would, of course, be the cost of adding new ADA-compliant bus stops if we were to move the route. And then there would have to be parking removal to create the bus stop zones.
How many?
How many? So, yeah, it really depends on the exact placement of them. So if it's a far side, if you were to place a bus stop far side of an intersection, which is often what the District of Columbia usually prefers, far stops because they are more visible, and those require a little bit less space than if we were to place them, like say mid-block, that requires more space because you have to pull in and pull out. So it really depends on exactly where they're placed but it could be roughly, yeah, something like 4 or 5, but it really depends. We'd have to come back with more information about that. Yeah. So some of the benefits of making the change would be that, as I mentioned, it is approximately 9 feet wider, curb to curb on Nevada Avenue. There are double yellow lines. The turn is less sharp from McKinley to Nevada. We would avoid the parent drop-off traffic congestion that we know is a concern for the school and parents. We would avoid the yellow school buses that are parked on Broad Branch Road next to the school, which are fairly wide and take up a lot of the roadway. If you've got a yellow school bus and 2 E6s and cars parked on the street as well, that is a tricky situation to get through at times. Also, one of our goals is to maintain transit service in the neighborhood for those that use it. And when we make a change like this, we like to stay as close to the original routing as possible if we can. We can look at other options, but as far as trying to not inconvenience the existing riders to the extent possible and having them walk too far to get to their transit option. And the other benefit is that this proposal would have no additional operating costs. A lot of times when we make a proposal to change a route, if it takes a lot of time, that costs a lot of money, but this proposal would not have any impact on our operating costs. So I hope that helps just lay out a little bit of background as you think about these considerations.
Okay,
So
I have a few questions and comments. First, as you were laying all of this out, I question whether you had any knowledge or took into any consideration some of the issues in regard to Blessed Sacrament and CCPC, since they never came up in your discussion about costs, negatives, or benefits. Also, on McKinley right now, there are not double yellow lines on every block on McKinley, which is something that you say that you need. Also, it doesn't seem that you've taken into consideration the number of students that walk to Lafayette from each side of that area. That never came up in your conversation about what you were talking about. Also, the traffic on Nevada wasn't something that you discussed. I don't think there have been any traffic studies in regard to your proposal. And last, I'll just say that in regard to this, you have a very convenient left turn from McKinley, and that's on Connecticut Avenue to go up to Western and across, which is only a reduction of 2 blocks from the neighborhood, which would take it out of danger in 2 different places, and also would address your concern about double yellow lines, which don't exist all the way across the country.
Right. And I just want to clarify, we don't necessarily have to operate on places with double yellow lines. Like I said, this route has been where it is for a very long time, but as we're making plans for the future, that is one thing we look for and aim to use as we're making new bus routes and new routings. And like I said, it's other options like using Western Avenue or Connecticut Avenue. Those are also things we could consider in the future. Those aren't off the table, but to the extent that we can still keep serving the riders that we have now who rely on the service, we'd like to keep it close to them.
And
I kind of like to, thank you for being here. I'd like to back up just a little bit. Where did this begin and exactly whose proposal and requested this to begin with? Is this WMATA because you feel things need to change, or is there someone that specifically has requested this?
This originated from the walkthrough with the...
Yeah, it's not school.
Okay.
It was Councilmember Todd's office who asked us to come to the walkthrough. Yeah.
Out of a walkthrough that Councilmember Todd's office had, and that was some of the suggestions that they had.
Can you speak into the microphone?
It came from some suggestions when a walkthrough was done in the community, and this was one of the suggestions that came out of that walkthrough. We were asked to explore it.
You realize that Nevada Avenue is not in council member Todd's area.
Yes, that's why Anthony is here. I immediately reached out to Councilmember Che's office because I realized that.
So we're discussing a proposal that you responded to, which is perfectly understandable, from Councilman Todd's office, and we don't even have a representative from Councilman Todd's office here tonight to discuss why he asked for the proposal in the first place.
And I can't respond to that, but I was told that someone would be
You
here
don't
from
need to,
Councilman Todd's
no,
office.
I'm making a point.
It was the same walkthrough that we did the DDOT thing.
Yeah.
Microphone on.
I get it. Okay, but no, let's back up though. Have you presented this?
Into the mic, please.
I am in the mic, and I can speak very loudly. Have you presented this proposal to Councilmember Todd's office officially, like you're presenting it to the ANC? Is he aware of that? That's a good question to know the answer to.
Yes, we did present it to Councilmember Todd's office.
Okay.
And what did he think?
He basically asked us to come out and talk to the community about it.
Right, because at this point, it is just a proposal. You've taken no action steps at this point, and as you put in your proposal, it would, because of the percentage that came out in your survey, you will have to basically go through the official steps in any process before you change anything. Can you hear me? So there's no official proposal as yet. This is just coming before the ANC, the community at this point. Okay. No. So it's not a done deal, as they were saying, right? This is just the initial step and stages for this process. Okay, thank you.
Okay, let me ask, if you've got any questions specifically for WMATA about this, we'll take the questions now. But if you want to make a comment about the overall proposal, then we'll take them in the order that we signed up for. Yes, ma'am.
Specifically about WMATA, will the neighborhood that's affected be notified of any pending changes periodically as the process progresses? Because we have not until a couple of weeks ago known that there was such a proposal. So will the community be notified?
Yes.
Community affected.
If you decide to explore the proposal, there'll be a full public participation event where you also have a public hearing, there'll be surveys. Our Office of External Relations does public participation. In fact, when we make changes like this, the Federal Transit Administration says we have to have a robust public participation plan.
The neighborhood commissioners will have discussions that we would have access to as well.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
I have a question. When you were developing both proposals...
Can you identify yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is Brady Morsley. I live on Nevada Avenue. When you were developing both proposals, did you limit yourself to just Broad Branch and Nevada, or did you also explore alternatives like Boise Avenue?
I didn't hear what you last said, but we did look at, in general, in the area. A lot of the north-south streets to the east of the school are very narrow, such as like 33rd Street, for example.
Did you specifically look at putting on Western Avenue as well?
Yes, we have looked at that, not as in-depth as we've looked at this option, since, as I mentioned, we do like to try to keep the service as close to where it is now for the existing riders.
In your opinion, if you kept it on Western, would all the benefits be reached for one being on Western?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's something we can consider. It's just that, you know, like I said, service has been in this neighborhood since for a very, very long time, and we don't want to cut people off.
Sure, I'm sure it's changed in 42 years as well.
Nice. Randy, another question.
So are we having
Information session tonight on a proposal from Councilman Todd's office. Is that what we're doing here tonight, or are we trying to move towards a vote? Because I think as a general rule, let's lay it out here, I don't know of pretty much anyone in this room, other than a couple, which I'd love to hear from, who supports this. So if the person who is proposing it and requested this is not here to set it up, why are we even listening to this?
Well, I don't know how much Councilmember Todd's office had specifically in recommending an approach like this. I don't know whether they had that particular thing in mind. I grant they should have been here tonight to talk about it. But I think we could take a vote tonight as to whether or not this proposal is one that the ANC would support. And if we're not going to support it, then as far as I'm concerned, it's dead. And we should let WMATA know now that that's our view. If that's where we're going, so it sounds like it is where we're going. But we'll talk in a few minutes, Carrie. But I think that doesn't, as Christine has said, that doesn't eliminate other possibilities for getting the bus off of Broad Branch Road. I think we should still think about whether there are other ways to do that, for instance, on Connecticut and Western. Whether that would be a preferable way both to locating the bus on Broad Branch as it currently is and to moving it onto Nevada. Whether that would be a better way to do it. I can certainly see the problems that we face with the bus on Broad Branch. Now, I was there for that original walkthrough, and Becky and I were there representing the ANC. And that, we saw, I think, 1 or 2 buses come through while we were there, and it does present a real problem on Broad Branch. There's a lot of congestion there.
Well, it's tight.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly tight. And so, I think the ANC might consider advising WMATA at this stage that we don't think it's appropriate to go to Nevada, but we think that they should continue to explore other possibilities for getting the bus off Broad Branch. That's one thing we could do.
Well, I think we also need to find out how many nannies and children take that bus to the school too.
And if I may, I just want to say that although the idea did come at the walkthrough with the school and Councilmember Todd's office, and DDOT was there as well, some other entities, we do think it is something that would work. We wouldn't be up here proposing something that someone told us to do if we didn't think it was a workable plan. So we've done our research, we've been out in the field and looked at it, and think that if this is what the community is something that they're behind, we can make it work. So, yeah, that is our stance on that proposal.
Just a couple more points, and I know you want to move on to people that signed up to say something. In looking at the list of 8 things that Paul presented, some that he didn't get a chance to talk about, the construction of the Chevy Chase Community Center, building we're in right now, for about 2 years is probably going to bring lots of traffic, lots of trucks, lots of things throughout the neighborhood on McKinley. Who knows if it's going to be on Nevada also. So that's something that I'm sure wasn't part of the study that was done in determining that Nevada would be a good alternate route. And lastly, the bike lanes that Paul just touched upon. There are current bike lanes on Nevada, but that's also being looked at to make those more official, which is also something that's going to create more havoc on Nevada. So, when we have something as accessible as Connecticut Avenue staring right at us, I think we need to explore many other things that don't include Nevada or Broad Branch.
Which I'll say, we do train our operators to drive appropriately next to bike lanes, and we're used to doing that throughout the city in many different locations. So, yeah. So which I'll say our training in that is strong.
And there's also 40 new people that are going to be assigned to enforce those.
Put your mic on.
There, just the other day, the mayor said there are going to be 40 new people enforcing bike lane regulations and ticketing all sorts of vehicles. So we'll see how some of those safety measures, I'm not just talking about buses, but with everybody, proceeds.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and return to our participation of people in the audience. But I would urge you, if you're just going to repeat something that's been said already, we don't need to do that again. We're particularly interested in hearing from anybody who has a different point of view. Obviously, there are a lot of people here who are opposed to the bus route on Nevada. We understand that, I think, pretty well. So if anyone else wants to talk about a different point of view. Carrie, I think we ought to hear from you as well. So at some point, we'll get to you. You're further down the list right now. Is that okay with everyone? We let Carrie speak? Okay, go ahead, Carrie.
That's 3 minutes.
We'll give her 5 minutes. She's speaking on behalf of the school.
So, thank you everyone again. I just wanted to make sure that everybody's clear on where school proper stands as I represent it. The proposal from WMATA came out of that collective walkthrough, so it was not necessarily proposed by any certain, it wasn't Councilmember Todd or any of the individuals. I think it was the collective agencies that heard the very clear concerns, saw the very clear concerns, responded. DDOT came back to the table in March when we met with a variety of proposals that I had not heard yet either. So that meeting in March was the first time any of us had heard the start of a solutions conversation. I'm eternally thankful that the conversation has started on the solutions. The thing I want the community to hear from me, both as an individual but also as a public servant to your neighborhood, is that I do not advocate moving a problem from one place to another. And I drive Nevada in the morning on my way back from drop off at Deal. It's a little nuts, right? So I get it, I hear you, I validate you. Please do not think that I think that that is the answer. But the person who is here to represent all 895 children and their families, I cannot more strongly advocate for the bus to be removed from Broad Branch ASAP. So the thing that has changed about us as a school is, one, when I started 5 years ago, we were at about 730 kids. Next year we will be at 936. So in 5 years, we have grown by 200 students. That's our projection. We're on track right now for that, but we're at 895 right now. That's what we have right now. So we continue to be projected to grow. We have continued to grow while I have been there. Eventually we will taper off. We have to taper off eventually. I hope. The other thing that has changed for our population is, previous to last year, we had never had special education buses drop off students at our building. And so that is new for us. And we now have 3 classrooms of special education students who ride buses to our building. And so those are a new factor that were not in the mix of any of the other years. And those are here to stay, so that's not a come and go kind of thing. And it is probably the single scariest mitigating factor when I watch a Metro bus try to go around one of the school buses and down traffic going the other way with small children who sometimes stop at crosswalks and sometimes don't stop at crosswalks, and kids darting in and out of cars. So I just want to make sure that I am on record on behalf of school of saying I cannot more strongly emphasize that for the safety of the students and the community, that bus on Broad Branch feels counterintuitive. I don't know that the answer is Nevada, right? I get the concerns. I don't want to be on record as saying that I think it should go there. That's not my expertise. I have also gotten concerns from parents whose kids walk from Nevada or from further west across Nevada. So I acknowledge that those are also concerns. I think it is it's a very, very tight, small, narrow, kid-friendly area.
Are you saying that that WMATA is unconcerned with the safety and how their drivers operate their buses? Is that what you're saying? No, I'm just curious because you keep saying how unsafe it is for the buses to go down Broad Branch during the school drop-off times. Are you saying that the
No, I think that they are somewhat geniuses. I do not understand.
So wait a minute. So they are operating safely, as far as you can tell?
I don't know what their metrics are. There has been.
You said it was scary and that they were making.
Please let her finish her.
Okay, I'm just asking a question.
Okay, let her finish her.
So what I would say is, I do not understand how they safely navigate, and they safely navigate in that block that's in front of school right now. Earlier this year, they did not safely navigate, and, you know, I don't
Was
want
that
to...
the inciting incident? I don't know. Was that the inciting incident?
I can't say that it's not, right? I mean,
It was on McKinley. That was McKinley.
It was a block down, right? And so...
Oh, so it had no relation to the swerving around the special...
Can we have her 5 minutes here?
Yeah, she's...
I'm sorry. No, I interrupted her. You can have my
Okay, we're going to go to the next person now. Okay, we'll go in the order. Thank you, Carrie. very much.
You're welcome.
We'll go in the order that people signed up. Jenny McCarthy.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Jean McCarty and I live at 5806 Nevada. It's right at the corner of Nevada and
So if
Oliver.
I interrupt her every time, so I can just take my pen and absorb your 3 minutes? Is this how it works?
Sure. Well, I was going to start by saying thanks everybody, and I really want to thank the commission and everybody for being here looking for a solution that's safe for our children, and thanks Dr. B as well. I can't agree more that there's a problem with the bus being on Broad Branch. I am a parent of a child at Lafayette. My husband and my child are back here. And we are also Lafayette families. We just live on the west side of Nevada. So our issue is both streets. And I walk my son to school every day. He's in 4th grade. So this is despite his asking me every single day, Mom, can I walk to school by myself today? I tell him no, and I tell him no because of Nevada. So crossing that street is like me walking up to the crosswalk, holding my breath, taking the first step out, and this is what it looks like. And then grabbing his hand and walking him across because of Nevada Avenue. I often let him go on Broad Branch on his own, but it is a problem there too. And so the issues with Nevada is that there is a constant, steady, heavy flow of traffic that goes all day and people drive too fast. There are people that drop their kids off and just continuously roll through that stop sign at kind of a 3-way cross there. And then our neighbors often talk about all of the blind spots that happen along that street, even before this issue came up. It's something that we're aware of. So I'm not opposed to moving the bus. I think that's the right decision. I just think there could be a much better solution than Nevada because of all of the kids that live across Nevada Avenue have to cross Nevada and then Broad Branch, and we are also part of the Lafayette community. I think too that in looking at safety in the neighborhood, we have to consider the other schools as well, and Blessed Sacrament is one of those, and Chevy Chase, the after-school program, but Chevy Chase Presbyterian School. So thank you for the time.
Okay, thank you. And I will again emphasize, if you're repeating what's been said before, it's really not necessary. We have all of that in mind, I think. Casey Dutton?
I see my time, thank you.
Okay, thank you. John Ayers?
I've got to see what's not that as well, but I do feel like making the point that being considerate, I ride the bus, we're all trying to be considerate of others who ride the bus, but it's extremely frustrating to have this much issue around the bus that frequently is completely empty going down Broad Branch and even down Western. Maybe it's got 5 people on it, maybe in the morning it's got 10 or 12, but that bus is, I think, the lowest, least ridden bus throughout the metro system. So to me, that's as Paul said, it's time to get creative and come up with a solution that addresses that issue, gets people to where they need to go on the bus, that gets the bus off of Broad Branch, and doesn't just push the problem down the road.
Okay, thank you, John. Andrew Anderson?
Andrew Anderson, I'm another Nevada resident. Again, love the idea of moving the bus off of Broad Branch. I think Nevada is not a solution either. I think we spoke to someone that, but one thing I wanted to say when our neighbors have been talking about this, one thing that has come up is we have felt like the bus drivers do an excellent job. I think Dr. B spoke to this as well. I think the real problem is how the other traffic reacts. Is the people driving around buses. We already see that happen on McKinley. There's blind spots on McKinley and the Hill. People still pass the bus. So that's the concern. That's why we wanted a more comprehensive study that addresses all those changes and how other traffic will respond. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yoram, Honey? Yoram?
Yoram Kanaya, I live at 5712 Nevada Avenue, and another point of view. Why do we have E6? E6 has, according to your own website for WMATA, and year-ending June 2017, average daily ridership of 291 passengers. Now, you haven't gotten 2018 yet for line and 2019, so I presume it's well lower because your budget shows that you expect lower ridership. That means that with 58 buses, 29 in each direction, you have 5 passengers for each ride, exactly 5.02 if you want exact average. That's from your own website. And it probably is supported by 700,000 plus of taxpayers' money. Again, looking at your budget and at your cost. Do we really need a bus that takes 5 passengers along that way? Thank you.
Thank you. And we have.
By the way, just for nothing, my lovely wife spent one morning 105 minutes counting buses at one corner. 930 cars pass by that corner on the bus during 105 minutes.
Okay. Go ahead, Sharon.
In terms of the E6 bus, I know that there are 2 sides to every story with the E6 bus, and I noted our ANC has put in requests for reviews regarding the E6, but there are some residents and maybe certain portions it's not heavily used, but for instance, I could give the example of the Knollwood retirement community and its employees who heavily depend on the E6 bus, so no matter what we do or what the bus actually looks like or what streets it actually takes, it is important for this because there are parts, and I can attest to it, I live on the outer ranges, and you call it the hinterlands right there, where people do need it and students do need it. So I just want to say that no matter what form, our communities do need alternate forms of transportation. Not everyone drives, so I don't think we should, at least in my perspective from my part of the district, that we should to look at all forms of transportation for our residents.
And as Paul mentioned at the very beginning of this discussion, last meeting we did have a presentation from DDOT about microtransit possibilities, and those look very promising or potentially promising. And so there may be other ways that we can address this problem more globally, more holistically, to make sure that people like Knollwood are going to have transportation when they need it. That's really important. Okay, the next one is Phil Longman. Okay. Jim Mullins?
I wait my time.
Okay, thank you. Pat Breck? Okay. Katie Anderson?
Hi there, I'm Katie Anderson, Lafayette kid, who also crosses both Nevada and Broad Branch. I have some really serious concerns that I share with Lafayette School about the safety of the Broad Branch route. I wanted to make 2 clarifications to WMATA just to help them with their analysis. The Nevada route, I've personally had 2 near misses where I've had cars almost hit my children and I as we were trying to get to cross the crosswalk on Oliver. That's been a real issue. The one thing that I wanted to point out to WMATA in your cost-benefit analysis, though, is it's been glossed over a little bit. Blessed Sacrament has a formal pickup site on Nevada. It's not off of Nevada. It's on Nevada and a full block between Patterson and Casada. And like Lafayette, there are parents with cars lining both sides. There are kids crossing the road. There are 2 cohorts that go down Patterson and 1 that go down Posada. And I just mentioned this because in your benefit analysis, you were talking about avoiding parent drop-off congestion, which is true for Lafayette, which is really why we're advocating getting it off of Broad Branch. But it's simply transferring it to a different pickup drop-off area in the form of Blessed Sacrament. And so to me, it's just the same problem, a different school to send it. If the premise is that buses are dangerous around pickup and drop-off areas for school formal pickup and drop-off areas, then Nevada's no better. It's the same problem, just a different street.
Thank you. Yes, Jerry, you can.
Just one quick thing. The enrollment at Lafayette is about 900. The enrollment at Blessed Sacrament and CCPC together is about another 600. So we should be talking about 1,500 kids in the neighborhood that we have to be concerned about because they're all just as important.
Okay. Kent Cooper?
My name is Ken Cooper. I live in Nevada Avenue, and each day I walk between Nevada Avenue and Broad Branch, up and down, up and down, up and down, for about 2.5 miles, and I do that in the morning and the afternoon. So I see the dangerous situation that exists on Broad Branch. I think one of the things the schools ought to consider is having the drop-off only on the school side of the street, whether it be Northampton, whether it be Broad Branch, whatever street it is. But I think Blessed Sacrament has tried to do that same thing, is have it so that the drop-off, where you pressure the drivers and the parents to drop off where the kids get out on the right-hand side of the car and get onto a sidewalk and walk to school, and they don't have to cross anymore. Whether that means you have to spread some parents out as to their drop-off time or suggested drop-off time. That's the biggest thing I've seen each morning. Kids getting dropped off on the west side of Broad Branch, or on one of the side streets, and then crossing Broad Branch by themselves. It's scary as can be. But I also see the kids down on Nevada. And that's scary as well because of the speed of the traffic. You're not dealing with kid-conscious drivers. You're dealing with commuters who are late to get down there. So I think, although WMATA did look at the bus, I think the ANC ought to take a broader scope, consider the other transportation needs. I didn't see anything in here about costs for concrete pads for bus stops all along the 6 new ones that are there. That's got to be tens of thousands of dollars. I didn't see anything about the number of kids crossing streets. That may not be in WMATA, but it ought to be the ANC. How many kids cross Nevada? How many kids cross Broad Branch? I didn't see anything about the speed. There's got to be speed studies on Broad Branch and on Nevada. The accidents, you had some good information on it, it was helpful. The trucks at Broad Branch Market, I think, is a big issue. I think, again, if the city could regulate or enforce the traffic rules so that they accommodate the school hours between 8 and 9 or 8 and 10, whatever, that's a big congestion area. There's no white lines painted on Broad Branch as to where cars, how close they can come to a corner. And that's where the drop-off points are, illegally around those corners. Big problem.
As I understand, that's one of the things that can be enforced now more rigorously, is parking around the corners, right?
Yeah, but they didn't say about putting crosswalks.
Yeah. Okay, Claire Saint? Saint?
Hi, I'm Claire Sant, and I live at 5600 Broad Branch Road, right on the corner of Broad Branch and McKinley, right by the bus stop, right there, right where the bus accident took place in August, where I was first on the scene to see 2 very young people just in front of the wheels of the bus. I moved there 5 years ago and was delighted to be right by the bus stop. We like the E6 and we love to use the bus. Subsequent to that, and then seeing the increase in the number of children now attending Lafayette has made me think a little bit differently about the bus going up and down Broad Branch. The one thing that I want to say that hasn't been said so far this evening is, you know, you've got the school on one side of the road, and then you've got Broad Branch Market, which we all know and love, on the other side of the road. And children and families are constantly going between the market to get their candy and their ice cream and their mac and cheese, and the playground, and back again and forth again. And so what you have, which may not be the case on Nevada, but I will accept that Nevada is sort of neither here nor there. The point that I'm trying to make is that there is just a lot of to and fro that you've got going across Broad Branch. It's not simply the case that people are just going in one direction in the morning and then the other direction in the evening. They're just zigzagging across to take advantage of those two wonderful amenities that we have in our neighborhood. And I think that really makes the idea of there being a bus going up and down between that, on top of all the other traffic and the trucks, seem a little bit untenable at this point. So I would like to raise my voice in support of considering moving the bus route away from Broad Branch Road. And I just also would like to just re-emphasize the fact that this suggestion, if you will, or this proposal, did come about as a function of the walkthrough that took place, the collaborative walkthrough that took place earlier this last fall. And don't consider that determining whether it's come from Councillor Todd's office or not particularly helpful. I think it was brought about as a genuine proposal, searching for options, and we should consider it therefore.
Thank you. Rhea Marsh? Yeah, I'm sorry. Not good at reading handwriting.
I live at 5700.
How do you pronounce your name then?
Rada.
Rada.
I think you caught a long time to figure that one out. I live at 5700 Nevada Avenue. It's the intersection, right at the intersection of Northampton. And yeah, I'm at 5700 Nevada Avenue, the intersection with Northampton. I'm not going to repeat what's been said. I'm just going to quantify it. I sent everybody this morning an email with video footage. I have a doorbell camera that does 24/7 recording. And by the way, 3 years ago, I was the one that got hit by a car crossing Nevada Avenue. So yes, it is scary. I understand and I agree. But consider this. This morning, and I just took a random footage this morning at 8 o'clock, the one I emailed to you. 66 cars. 94% of them failed to stop at the stop sign. Consider that when you do a proposal. I think WMATA does a great job, and I love Metro and I love public transportation. I'm fully in support of that. But I'm here offering my video footage to you when you want to do your studies. If you want to see it, I can give you a week's worth of footage, 24/7, and you can count it yourself. It's just very scary. People go by really quickly, they don't stop, and it's really frightening. And I see children crossing, my children as well. I'm a Lafayette parent. I love the school, I love Broad Branch. There's no doubt about it. I think we all support the fact that we just need a smarter, safer solution for Broad Branch as well as Nevada. But remember this, 96% of cars this morning failed to stop at the stop sign. On Nevada and Northampton. Okay, and this is just a random sampling at 8 o'clock this morning. Like I said, I'd be happy to give you footage of anything else you want at any time, and you'll see that this is a regular thing.
Thank you. George Murphy?
Hopefully my comments will be shorter than the time it takes me to walk up here.
Appreciate it.
Again, good evening. My name is George Murphy. I'm an over 50-year resident of the intersection of Quezada and Nevada. Also, my grandparents actually were in Nevada Ave since 1941. So to say just a couple of points. One.
You're talking to the mic.
Oh, okay. I normally talk so loud that no matter where I am. So in any event, a vehicle count on Nevada Avenue. I can't underscore, I know this has been said, but what a major artery Nevada Avenue has become now as an offshoot from Connecticut Avenue. Your point of being 66 cars at 8 o'clock in the morning, within a short period of time. Second, I don't know if anyone has requested from 2nd District MPD for special attention or for them to set up, hey, enough complaints. If you have 94% of people sliding through a stop sign or whatever else, that's a consideration for the message to go through. Definitely, Patterson in Nevada, as well as Quezada, Nevada, are drop-off points for Blessed Sacrament. school with a little more than 500 kids in it, and BS does Blessed Sacrament School, no buses. You either walk or you get dropped off. There's no bus to Blessed Sacrament. And third and finally, I want to compliment whoever took this picture of the Nevada Ave Northwest, because I haven't seen a street with no cars parked on it ever. So whatever time that you all hit this one, well done for the marketing. Thanks so much for this time. Have a nice one.
Okay. Thank you, George. Jim Volsky?
Good evening, I'm Jim Volsky. I'm a 15-year resident of 5821 Nevada Avenue. It's the house with all the irises in a couple of weeks, right at the corner of Patterson and Nevada Avenue. And my deck sort of overlooks the whole street. I got a little perch to watch. I'm not going to repeat everything about all the hazards. I think we're aware of it. Something that did get mentioned is really just the geometry of Nevada Avenue, and none of the intersections are orthogonal, and so you're constantly facing different line spots depending on which way you're looking. I can't think of a worse street to put buses on. I've lived on 30th Place, the bus route, for 10 years. I never had a single complaint with WMATA. You know, the bus drivers do an excellent job. It's an asset to the neighborhood. But Nevada Avenue is the wrong street to put them on for all the reasons you're hearing tonight. The traffic, the curvilinear nature of the street, it just encourages sort of faster driving and less careful driving. But I really want to ask something, because I'm not really familiar with your process, but from what I'm hearing tonight, can I ask, can we just vote to take Nevada Avenue off the table tonight and move on to find other routes?
The commission can vote to recommend that. I don't know whether you're familiar with the advisory neighborhood commission.
Sure.
The advisory is very important.
That I understand.
We have no power. So we can advise. Okay.
Can we advise tonight?
We can advise tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Frederica Dalmon? Okay, thank you. And Cal?
Cal Simone. I live off and on at near the intersection of Nevada and Oliver since 1961, attended Lafayette. Don't know how many kids there were back then when the E6 was the D6 and then the D8. I still have timetables from the 60s for all these bus routes in the city. I'm not sure what to do. I have a question for the school person. The drop-off point for the new special ed buses, that's on Broad Branch and can't be anywhere else? Okay. So the perspective I want to offer is from that of the bus rider, the person who uses the bus. I can't imagine bus stops at either Nevada and Oliver, where you put it, or Nevada and Patterson for the reasons mentioned. But for it to go down Connecticut means that I and my parents, who are now in their 80s and 90s, who use the bus heavily since they don't drive anymore, would lose the E6 route completely if it were routed to Connecticut Avenue. So if we're going to do that, then the frequency of the E4 bus, which used to be E2 and E4, is now just E4, has gotten to be so little frequency. It went from like every 10 or 12 minutes when it was both routes to 15 minutes to 20 minutes, and when it runs late, it can be 25 or 30. It's getting really difficult to get over the Friendship Heights and Meshro. So if we're going to take the bus off of both Broad Branch and Nevada, I'd want to see some service that helps us get to other places that replaces that lost service, even though it's only every 24 and 48 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Cal. Okay.
Lastly, that picture of Nevada Avenue must have been taken south of McKinley Street. I just can't imagine where there's so few cars parked.
Yes. Did you want to speak to it? Okay. Okay. Quickly.
My name is Michaela Platzer. I live in Barnaby Woods, and I'm an odd duck because I actually take the bus every day, so yay, E6. And I think it's really important to examine how important the bus is for daily commuters who are trying to get to work. And some of these proposals are simply not going to, they're not tenable for people. And one suggestion I have is more people should start taking the E6 bus instead of simply pointing out that there are not enough riders. Please take the bus. Number two, and I'd like to know from people who are doing this study, how often, the frequency of the problem. The bus only goes every 25 minutes. How often, I don't know when this problem is that we keep talking about this dangerous situation. Couldn't we just adjust the timetable a little bit so the bus isn't coming through and the kids are being dropped off? We're talking 20 minutes in the morning and in the evening. We're moving a whole entire bus route and inconveniencing people for maybe 20 minutes a day. Seems to be sort of short-sighted, doesn't really address the real issue. So please ride the bus.
Okay. I think we've heard from everyone. Everyone that was on the list. Jerry, you know. Oh.
Yeah.
You do? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your name.
May I?
Yes, you may.
I'll be really quick.
Okay.
My name is Ross Eisman. I live at 5816 Nevada for about 25 years. I just have two comments, particularly with regard to Nevada Avenue and the rerouting of the bus. One is, on the east side of Nevada Avenue, you need to know that there are significant stormwater management issues in that alley that are no one's fault. It's just that a creek runs through the back of those houses since 1926 when the houses were originally built. And my view is that any kind of disruption on Nevada, whether someone's renovating their house on the east side, whenever that happens, the water in some way, either the water table rises or the direction of the water changes and creates a pretty significant problem, particularly for my backyard. And I would hope that that would be, I hear people saying, when the bus goes down their street, their house shakes sometimes. I would hope that that would be some kind of environmental consideration. Department of Environment is well aware of the problems, the water storm management problems on the east side of Nevada. The other just brief comment with regard to Nevada and buses heading southbound. We talked about angles and turns onto Broad Branch, but now we're talking about southbound, a right turn onto McKinley, which is a major intersection, more of a major intersection than Broad Branch and McKinley. I just can't imagine that bus being able to swing right back onto McKinley, given the nature of that intersection, and particularly during rush hour. I can just imagine the backup of cars as it is right now during rush hour at the corner of McKinley and Nevada. I just can't imagine the traffic backing up in front of people's houses southbound. That would be on the east side of Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you.
Randy, one quick point. I just want to make one point, and I think I speak for everyone on the commission when I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming out tonight, for speaking what you had to speak, for your ideas, and also for not just saying what the person before you said, but for really saying lots of inventive and thoughtful comments. And I think I've learned a lot about Nevada and the buses. So I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you.
Well, and one thing I appreciate too is that I think everybody realizes that there are problems here, and whether you bus one route or another, everyone's concerned about safety, and I appreciate that. Jerry, do you want to propose a way forward here? Or I would be glad to if you want.
Well, I'm sure I'll be corrected that I'm stating it wrong.
Take the language of the forward as object.
Yeah, I'd like to propose that we do not support this solution that was brought forward to us about moving the E6 from Broad Branch onto Nevada. I'll keep it simple like that.
Can I offer an amendment to that, that we also advise WMATA that they should look for other solutions that would get the bus off of, or would at least consider moving the bus off of Broad Branch to other locations, or, as was just suggested, adjusting the bus schedule so that it doesn't conflict at all with pickup and drop off at Lafayette. I would like them to continue to work on that.
As would I, as I suggested, I think it should go on Connecticut Avenue to Western, but, so if we want to talk about, not support this solution, but encourage them to look for alternative solutions that do not include broad